Hello, vinyl community. Alex back again with another part to um, well, going through each year of the 80s and giving you my top 10 albums from those years. Um, Filming this the day after getting back from Leeds. Um, Went up there for my cousin's wedding. Um, and yeah, it was a good wedding. Bit fancy. But good. But yeah,
sorry.
that's fine. It's fine. But yeah, no. I obviously my wife Jenny came with me. And we had to leave little Violet down here because my cousin didn't want kids at their wedding. I wondered why, and then I saw the venue, and I saw why. So yeah, that's all good. So we got back yesterday, which was Monday when I'm filming this. You guys will see this Saturday. But yeah, so yeah. Anyway, I'm going to give you my top 10 albums of 1988 this time. Yep, we are so close to being done with this series. And then it's just trying to find something else to film for the channel. As you guys know, I'm trying to do more regular videos, like weekly videos on a Saturday. So if you guys have any requests, any ideas for me, let me know in the comments down below because I'm excited to hear what you think. Anyway, with that said and done, 2 minutes in and I still ain't shown any vinyl.
That's your catchphrase, that.
Nothing new here really, so let's just crack on. Number 10 from 1988 is the Traveling Wilburys. Of course, in my opinion, the greatest supergroup ever formed. I know there might be some people that disagree, I don't know, but when you've got a supergroup formed by George Harrison, Roy Orbison, Tom Petty, Jeff Lynne, and Bob Dylan, I believe it's Bob Dylan, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure that's who it is, then you know you're in for a ride with this. Of course, they only put out 2 albums together. This is their first one. This is the one I think is the better of the 2. I don't care too much for the second album. But yeah, just a really good album. One I don't spin that regularly, but every time I spin it, I seem to have a good time with it. So there's that album, number 10, the Traveling Wilburys. At number 9, an R&B album here. No surprises there on my channel. This is Will Downing with his self-titled debut. In my opinion, the best album he's ever made. He has big tracks on here like Sending Out an SOS, which may be my favourite track on here. Do You is another great track. A Love Supreme, which is his ode to John Coltrane. On this album, really good stuff. Yeah, I can't get enough of this album. Very upbeat, very dancey soul R&B. I mean, there's a couple of chilled numbers, but you mainly get this one for the dancey stuff. Really nice, really solid album there from Will Downing from 1988. Obviously, as it's in my ranking of 1988. But yeah, Will Downing comes in at number 9 with his self-titled debut. A hip-hop album. There's going to be a lot of hip-hop albums in this part because from the 80s, I think 88 may be my favourite year for hip-hop. And a lot of you hip-hop fans are probably going to have a go at me for putting this album so low. in this ranking, because yes, this is one of the best hip hop. This album is, I will go on the record and say this is one of the best hip hop albums ever recorded. But honestly, when it comes down to it, I don't spin this album anywhere near as much as the 7 albums that are later on this list. And honestly, yeah, I don't really know what else I can really say about this album that I haven't said before. But number 8 goes to NWA, Straight Outta Compton. This might be lower on my list from last time I made this video. I don't really remember where I put it before, but I know that I don't spin this album that much anymore. I listen to maybe the title track, the song Express Yourself and Gangsta Gang. Like, I listen to some of the individual tracks on this album, but as a whole it doesn't get spun that often, and I do spin some of the other albums on this list a lot more, as well as just overall have better memories with them. Like NWA, it's a good album, but I don't really have any special memories attached to it. It's a great album, but when it comes to NWA, I have there's an album by them I prefer. I think it's the one after this. I know that's the one without Ice Cube involved in the group, and I actually prefer each individual member's solo work over this. So obviously Dre and Eazy and Ice Cube and MC Ren, all their solo stuff I prefer over this. But this is still one of the best albums ever recorded, one of the best hip hop albums ever made. I'm just putting it at number 8 because the impact it has on me is not as great as maybe it is on other people, and I just don't, as a whole album, I just don't spin it as often as the 7 albums that I've put above it. So yeah, NWA, Straight Outta Compton comes in at number 8. At 7, another soul R&B album here. This is Gary Taylor, Compassion. Discovered this in 2019, and then I made sure I bought this in lockdown of 2020 when that happened. So yeah, this was a Discogs purchase back in lockdown. But of course the title track is great on this. Tease Me, Lonely Heart's another standout track on here for me. Yeah, just a really solid album from Gary Taylor. He did have an album out before this that he released on A&M Records, but after he dropped a single of theirs that only came out as a promo, they lost faith in him and dropped him, and he moved to 10 Records, and now I bet A&M are kicking themselves for dropping him from the label, because this is the result of him moving from A&M to 10 Records. And this is a much better album than his first album, so really good stuff. Love this. Gets spun regularly, so it does get spun regularly. Regularly. Anyway, yeah, cannot complain about this album. Really love it. So Gary Taylor's Compassion comes in at number 7. At 6, another hip hop album. This is Follow the Leader by Eric B and Rakim. Their second album. I showed Paid in Full in 87. Of course, their first 2 albums are better. Are the better of the 4 they put out together. And I truly believe that Paid in Full is the better album, although this has my favourite Eric B. Rakim track on it, which is Microphone Fiend. Also have the title track, Follow the Leader. You've got Lyrics of Fury, Just a Beat, Put Your Hands Together, Musical Massacre. Just a really, really good album. I'm so happy I have his original US pressing. But yeah, just a really, really good album. Very solid hip hop album. And yet, like I said, the only reason it's above NWA, I think NWA Straight Outta Compton is a better album than this, but I spin this one more, and I just have better memories around Eric B Rakim. So yeah, that comes in at number 6. Number 5, the one and only time I'm going to show a CD in any of these videos, because I love this album. It is in my top 10 of 1989, 88, but I don't have this album on vinyl, and I really wish I did, because this is maybe my favourite album from this band. Maybe my second favourite, I don't know, but that's And Justice for All by Metallica. Yeah, this is the only time I'm going to show a CD in any of these videos. This album's... I said I'd only show physical media, and I haven't shown any CDs up till now, because I tried not to. I didn't, and I just couldn't not include this album in this ranking because of how good it is. The track 1 alone on this album is the reason this could be my favourite track. Just how it's, or my favourite album by Metallica, excuse me. Just the fact it starts off really like just guitar, and then drums come in, and then the thrash metal part of the song comes in. It just works really well for me. Yeah, I absolutely adore this album from Metallica. Probably is my favourite of what they've done. Either this or the Black Album, but I seem to listen to this one just a bit more. But yeah, really solid album. Phenomenal stuff. Excuse me, phenomenal stuff. Yeah, cannot rave about that album enough. Just wish I had a vinyl copy to show you, but for now the CD is going to have to do. And we're going to jump from one metal album straight to another. This is Living Colour with Vivid. Cult of Personality is of course the big track on here, which all you wrestling fans will know as CM Punk's entrance music when he was back in WWE. That's how I discovered this album, and yeah. And funny enough, there's a couple of tracks on this album produced by Mick Jagger, which is another good selling point for this as well, which you wouldn't associate Mick Jagger with like thrash metal or metal in general. But yeah, he produced, I think, 1 or 2 tracks on this album, and you can really tell it's got a little bit of a Mick Jagger influence behind those 2 tracks. Glamour Boys and Which Way to America are the ones produced by Mick Jagger, but yeah, you can definitely tell that they've got that influence. But love this album, and have done since I discovered it. I only picked up a vinyl copy of this, I think it was last year I picked this up. Yeah, really, that was a great find. Yeah, that's in 4. In 3 is another album, another hip-hop album I think is one of the best hip-hop albums ever recorded, and that's Public Enemy. It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. This is one of the first, I think this is one of the first, if not the first, hip-hop album I ever owned on vinyl. Definitely an early one from me in my collection. Yeah, Bring the Noise, Don't Believe the Hype, Terminator X, The Edge of Panic, Court, Can I Get a Witness, Show 'em What You Got, Night of the Living Bassheads, Black Steel in the Hour of Chaos, Rebel Without a Pause, Party for Your Right to Fight. The list goes on and on of great tracks on this album. Like I said, one of the best hip-hop albums ever made. Their second album, I showed their debut in '87. Of course, my favourite album from Public Enemy has to be Fear of a Black Planet. Their third album, but this one is a close second, and it shows. It's so good. Honestly, really, really nice, and you can hear that Rick Rubin influence in this album more so than you could in their debut. It's really good. You can hear all the rock and punk samples used. It's a really good album. Really nice way to introduce rock samples to hip hop, and Public Enemy did it really well. At number 2, Tracy Chapman, her debut album from 1988. I love this album. Every single song on this album is one that you do not want to skip. Opens with talking about Revolution, which is such a good song. Obviously, Fast Car is the most famous track on this album. Baby Can I Hold You is probably my favourite track on this album, which was also later covered by, I think it was Westlife. One of those boy groups from the 90s anyway.
I know, my mum loved that song. And she always thought it was by that band.
No, Tracy Chapman did it first. And For My Love is another really good track on here that I love as well. The only reason, that this album is not number 1 is because the album that I have at number 1, I spin way more regularly and just have so many great memories with. This album is just one that I think is good. Very well recorded, very well written. Just an overall fantastic album. And yeah, I just love Tracy Chapman because of this album. I think a lot of people love Tracy Chapman because of this album. Yeah. Tracy Chapman comes in at number 2. Now, number 1, and I know a lot of you are probably going to disagree with me because you're not as into your hip-hop as I am. Like a lot of you might have put Tracy Chapman or even Metallica at number 1, or some of you might have even put even if you're not a hip-hop fan, but you're like a casual hip-hop fan, maybe Public Enemy or NWA at number 1. But for me, the number 1 spot goes to EPMD with their debut album, Strictly Business. This album, let me tell you, so many good tracks. The opening track, Strictly Business, has that famous Eric Clapton sample. It's My Thing, You Got to Chill, So Let the Funk Flow, Get Off the Bandwagon. There's every single track on here is like defined, is a definition of what 80s hip hop is, and the lyricism from Eric Sermon on this album, and even PMD here is just, it's at their best on this album. The production is the best on this album. Yeah, it's just, when it comes to EPMD, this album's untouched in my opinion. I think every EPMD fan has their favourite. This is theirs for me. I've always loved this album. It's one I'm constantly playing all the time, whenever I can get away with it, of course. And yeah, I love spinning this. I genuinely believe this is my favourite album from 1988. Just because it's so good. But yeah. Anyway, that is it, guys. That's my top 10 albums of 1988. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section. If you have a top 10 of 1988, please let me know, because I'd be interested to know your list and, you know, just in general what your thoughts are. I know there was a lot of hip hop in this part. That's, like I said at the beginning, I think from the 80s, 88 is my favourite year for hip hop when it comes down to the 80s. So yeah, like I said, let me know what you thought. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to my channel. Make sure the bell is switched on if you're not, if it isn't already. That way you guys will never miss an upload. And I'll see you all again very soon.
Bye.
Bye.